So today we are making butter tart bars, and there's a few tricks to butter tart bars. So I'm just going to go through a few things. I've measured out my flour and sugar for the base, and now I'm just going to do my butter. So I don't know about you, but when I'm measuring out butter, I like to be very accurate. So I like to weigh it. So I've cut it into what I think is 1 cup, but I'm gonna just weigh it to be sure. Alexa, how much is 1 cup of butter in grams?
1 cup of butter weighs about 230 grams.
230 grams. So I'm a little shy, so I'm gonna just cut a little bit more. So now we're at 230 grams, right on the dot. And I'm just gonna roughly cube it up because it just goes a little bit quicker. And be sure your butter is at room temperature, or this is gonna take you forever to work it into the crust and it won't be as nice. So I'm just cubing it, throwing it in. So I think I'm just gonna switch this to a bigger bowl because it's pretty full. So I'm gonna switch it here. And then you need a pastry cutter, or they say you can use 2 knives and just, kind of cut it up like that. But if you have a pastry cutter, it's a million times easier. So that is a pastry cutter. That's a pastry cutter. And you're just gonna work it into your flour and sugar and just keep going. And this will take you at least 5 minutes or so. So stay tuned, we'll come back. So a couple tricks about the topping. I'm gonna put my butter right away. I've measured out a 1/4 cup. And I'm gonna put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. It won't be completely melted, but just kind of swoosh it around and let it continue to melt, and then put it aside, because we do want the butter to cool down because we don't want scrambled eggs when we mix it with the eggs. So, and then the other trick, everything else is pretty straightforward. You're just measuring it up and adding it. But the other trick is with the raisins. We always put not boiling water, but boil the kettle, and then once it's fairly warm, pour it over your raisins and let them sit until the edges turn white, and put that aside with your butter that's cooling. And the reason you do that is it releases nutrients from the raisins, and it helps with people digesting them. So I don't know if it changes the flavor much, but it does do that. Okay, so we're going to use the Normand technique to put parchment paper in our bowl. He says you just crumple it up a little. And you just put it in your, does this have to go over here? Yeah, a very big. I'll cut some more. But it helps your paper sit nice and still once you crumple it up. I like to do it this way, so you have, of course she does. She's stupid. You do it this way. You do it this way so that you have parchment all the way up each side, because you're going to pull this out after. Okay, so I don't like this way. Of course she doesn't. So what I'm gonna do is just, my edges, I want to be nice and neat. So I'm gonna cut in each corner. So I still like the crumple idea, Normand. Don't be mad. But I'm gonna cut the corners to tuck it in. Most people aren't this big, and you don't have to be, but most people should be. See, just cutting those corners, do you see how it sits all nicely in there? And yeah, you're gonna have a nice tight fit, because before it wouldn't sit nice in the corners. So we've got our, take another picture of this, Jane. We've got our crumble. So it's like the texture of oatmeal. And we're just gonna dump it in here. And what I like to do is push it up into, because we're putting a crust with sides, kind of push it so that we have enough on each side, and then we'll pat it down. So we're gonna go pretty high on this, and then just kind of smooth out your base. And then just kind of, don't be afraid to press, because we're packing the butter and flour together, and we want our sides to stay nice.
Am I getting it in the frying field?
And it doesn't matter if your finger marks are there, it's fine. And then I don't like it to be too thick, like where the sides meet the bottom. So then I kind of go with my palm and push down at that point. And this is just my technique. You can do your own if you want to do it wrong. But this works well. And just like that, your crust is ready to go in the oven, I think at 350 for 15 minutes. And 15 to 20 minutes, and you just want it to start getting golden, but don't over bake it. So a couple tricks about the topping. I'm gonna put my butter right away. I've measured out a 1/4 cup, and I'm gonna put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. It won't be completely melted, but just kind of swoosh it around and let it continue to melt, and then put it aside, because we do want the butter to cool down, because we don't want scrambled eggs when we mix it with the eggs. So, and then the other trick, everything else is pretty straightforward. You're just measuring it up and adding it. But the other trick is with the raisins. We always put not boiling water, but boil the kettle, and then once it's fairly warm, pour it over your raisins and let them sit until the edges turn white, and put that aside with your butter that's cooling. And the reason you do that is it releases nutrients from the raisins, and it helps with people digesting them. So I don't know if it changes the flavor much, but it does do that. So I just want to go over what we're doing with the eggs, and so these are slightly beaten eggs. So I'm gonna put that in my bowl, my stand mixer, and I'm gonna slowly add the cooled butter. So you can see it's still all liquid, but this has been at least over 5 minutes that it's been sitting waiting. So I'm just gonna add it slowly, because I do not want scrambled eggs. So just put your mixer, on about 2, and then just slowly drizzle it in. And then we're going to add the rest of our wet ingredients and our dry ingredients. So I'm just adding my 1/4 cup of corn syrup. And a teaspoon of vanilla, and for the goodness sakes, use pure vanilla. Don't cheap out on that synthetic crap. Now we're gonna drop in our dry ingredients. There's nothing difficult about this recipe. It's just throw it all in, mix it up. But I just keep it on low. I don't blast it because it gets super foamy anyways. So just stir it low till it's mixed well. So we have our liquid ingredients, and you can see it's nice and smooth, no lumps. And we're just gonna add in a cup of pecans. I know you're gonna say traditional butter tarts have walnuts, but pecans are less bitter. So it's up to you. You can put walnuts or pecans, but just know that they're gonna be better, in my opinion, with the pecans. So it's 1 cup-ish. This is one you measure with your heart. And I'm gonna put a little extra of the dust. Keep the dust because these are very runny butter tarts. So the dust just helps it be a little less runny. I know, again, most of you are gonna say, hey, we love runny butter tarts, but when you're doing butter tart squares and you're cutting them, if they're too runny, you just have a mess. So I'm just gently folding the nuts in. And now what I'm gonna do with my raisins, and I wanna show you that they're white on the edges. Hopefully the camera picks that up.
Yeah.
So that's been probably 10 minutes now, I would say, and they're good to go. And there's not an exact science to this. It's just when the edges are white, they're good to go. And I'm just gonna use a strainer and dump these in, and I still pat them dry with a paper towel as well, just to get the excess moisture out, and then I'll fold them into my wet ingredients. So I've dumped my raisins onto my paper towel, and I'm just gonna give them a good squeeze, and then I'm just gonna leave them on the counter until my base is done. Let them dry real good, and I'll fold them in at the last second to my wet ingredients, and then I'll dump it all into the crust and bake it some more. So it's been 15 minutes. I'm gonna check on my shortbread, and I know the recipe says it should be golden, and it's not golden. It's, you know, I'm gonna put it in for maybe 2 more minutes. So it's been another 2 minutes. And I'm just gonna take them out, because I don't like overcooked shortbread. So I'm just gonna take it out. You can see it's just starting to brown along the edges. So we don't want our edges burned. So now I'm gonna add the raisins into my wet ingredients. And just fold those in gently. So this is the consistency of our, so you see it's quite runny. But that makes for a yummy butter tart. If it doesn't drip down your arm, you've done something wrong. Okay, so this is good to go. So we just dump it right in here, and you'll see why we put the crust up so far on the sides. It's quite a bit of batter. Get all the good stuff out. And just give it a minute, it'll self-level. And then you're good to put it back in the oven. And so the cooking time is the trickiest part of these butter tarts, getting it right. So it's gonna kind of foam up on top and make kind of a weird coating. And if you jiggle it, it'll jiggle on top, and you don't want too much of a jiggle on top when you take it out because it will firm up somewhat, but you don't want super soupy. So you just kind of have to make it a few times to get the idea, but I'll try to show you the proper jiggle to take it out. So these are going in for at least, the recipe says, I'm just going to double check.
25, I think.
Yeah, the recipe says 25. I'm going to start at 35 because I've made these quite a few times in my oven. I have an electric oven and it still takes 35 minutes. So that's where I'm going to start. Check it at 25, check it at 30, 35, see where it's at. Okay. Go back.
That's at 350.
So we're at 35 minutes and we're gonna check our jiggle. So see how it's very jiggly. Let me see. Very jiggly in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say that's not quite done. So I'm gonna give it at least, I'm gonna give it 3 more minutes. Alexa, set a timer. So it's been another 3 minutes. We're gonna check our jiggle. So here's what I have to decide now. So it's still jiggling, but see how dark my crust is getting? I really don't want it any darker than that. So I think I'm gonna take these out. I could go maybe another 2 minutes. I just don't want to burn my crust. Okay, I'm gonna go another 2 minutes. Judgment call. So we're pretty much at 40 minutes. I'm gonna take this out of the oven. I'm not gonna let it go beyond that. So you can see it's still a little jiggly. Alexa, stop. But, you know, not horrible. Okay, so that's coming out.